Hi there, my name is Pablo Requena. Welcome to another video about things to do related to guitar making. So in this video we're going to have a look at how to fit the pegs for the head on your flamenco guitar. So before we get into that, obviously there needs to be a way for the strings to be attached to the head on a guitar, and usually the conventional most popular way is to use a set of tuning machines which it will fit in these holes, and then the strings will go down this slot into the barrels of the tuner. But there's another way that is more traditional, and also old-fashioned guitars use this type of system, which is using pegs like this. So I'm just going to explain a few things so that you can do this on your own, and I'm not going to be able to do the whole thing because then it's going to be a very long video and it's not going to be very practical, but I'm going to explain how I've got to this point, and I'm going to explain what to do from here, and I'm going to give this some dimensions so that you can do this in your own workshop. So a couple of things before we get into it. So because we have two very different ways to attach the strings into the head, the very first thing that we need to take into account is that the angle is going to be different. So if I put these two together, you can see that the angle of these two heads is noticeably different. Right, so I'm going to explain why, and I'm going to explain what is the angle. So in the conventional tuning machine system, the head of the angle, the angle of the head is 14 degrees. So what that means is that the angle between this face and this face is 14 degrees. And that is an angle that is adequate because, or appropriate, because the strings will come down into the barrels of the tuners, and it will provide enough pressure downwards so that the string is gonna be able to vibrate properly, and it's gonna have enough tension and provide enough contact for the string to be attached into the nut. The only problem is that when we use the peg system, the place where the strings will attach, it's up here, while in the other system the string will go down into the level of the barrel. So in this case we're going to have 18 degrees, and the idea is that we bring the head back so that then the string, by the time it's attached above the face, it still have enough break angle at the nut. That way it's possible to get good clarity with the strings and as we play, and we're not going to compromise on the pressure and the tension that the strings need to have at the nut position. So for that reason, that's why we have more angle on the flamenco head. You can use this system for a classical guitar as well if you wish, but this is more commonly used for flamenco guitars, and very old-fashioned flamenco guitars, that's the system that they use. Also modern ones, but you know, this is not something a maker would do unless somebody's commissioned a guitar with this system. But enough people of you have asked me to explain how to do this because they want to have a go and do it themselves, so that's what we're doing here. So now that we know the difference between the angle in both of them, we can put this one to one side because we're not going to need it now. So I'm going to explain a little bit about the layout of the holes. So the shape of the head needs to be slightly different, and what it is that, let me get a pencil. The width of the head at this point, at the base, it can be more or less as usually it is, but up here at the level or at the height of the top holes, it needs to be a little bit narrower than the conventional. So the best thing that I can recommend to you is that you do a full-size drawing of the design that you have to make sure that everything is going to work. So I'm just going to give you a few dimensions, and then you do your own thing, and when you know that it works on a piece of paper full size, then you go and do it on your guitar. So the first dimension I'm going to give you is the width of the head, the total width, at the level of the first set of holes. And this width here is 67 millimeters. Then the width at the top, also at the level of the holes, it's 73. So once you have those two dimensions, you can get these two faces. Then you're going to draw a parallel line to this edge 14 millimeters away. You can see you got this marking here, and this line is 14 millimeters away from this edge. You need to do the same in the other side, obviously. Then when you have this line, you're going to mark the position of the holes. So the way I do it, and it works for me, you have to find your own way, but I think this will help you. It's from this top edge, which is right next to the nut, I have 35 millimeters to the center of the first hole. And then I have 45 millimeters in between the other ones. That way I have a good layout of the holes. Now this is important because I've also done a layout of roughly the position of the strings, so that you can see why we want this. If the head opens up too much, what will happen? I've written down here these lines, and this is the center, and these positions here are more or less the position of the strings. So the position on the strings in my guitar is 8.5 in between centers. So from the center to the first one is 425 millimeters, and then 8.5 in between the other two. And then you need to draw a line to the side of the hole that you're going to make. And what you want is for the string not to be too close to the other one, otherwise all of this is going to get too close together and it's not going to work. So you can see this line represents the string, so it's well away from this hole here. That's great. Then this one, it's a little bit close together to this one, but it's okay. And like I say, you have too much angle here, then you're going to end up having this string crashing into this hole all the time, and it's going to give you problems with the tuning later. Some people, what they do to sort this out is that instead of having all the holes in a line parallel to the edge, they bring them in a little bit. I'd rather do it this way rather than changing that angle. And then here you can see that the first, well, in this case is the string, the sixth string, but the first string will be the same thing. This string will come into this peg from this side. So you can see this string is never going to be really interfering with anything else. So this is the way that you normally string up the flamenco guitar with pegs. You bring the top string and the bottom string, they come into the peg from the outside, while all the other four strings, they come into the pegs from the inside. That way the strings are not really interfering with each other too much. Right, so once you have the position of all the holes, what I did is to decide, okay, what type of pegs am I going to use? So here there's two types that you can use. The ones that I like using is the traditional friction peg. This is the one that we're going to fit. But there's a different type of peg, which is, it looks like this. It's a little bit bigger. And it's a bit bigger because, well, bigger in diameter, but not in length. And the reason why it's bigger is because it's actually a mechanical peg. So it looks like the traditional thing, but inside the body there's a planetarium system of cogs that what it does is that as you turn the key, the top section it's multiplied or demultiplied so that it spins less. So it has the ability to tune in more easily. This is very popular now because tuning the guitar with this type of heads is not always so easy. You need to, the first thing is that the pegs need to fit spot on. They need to be perfect. If they don't, then you're going to have problems with the pegs not holding the strings, and then you think that you tuned up and then the strings are pulling and the guitar loses their tuning. So a peg that doesn't fit properly, it's a nightmare. But also, as you tune, you have direct connection, so there's no multiplying or demultiplying in the winding of the string. So here, just a tiny little turn will go up a semitone or even a tone. So you have to really get used to tune with this type of pegs because it's very sensitive, and just a little turn will make a big difference in the tension of the strings and therefore in the tuning. So for that reason, people have gone now into the mechanical peg because it makes that job a little bit easier. That might be the subject for another video. If enough people want me to do that, I will look into it. But for now, what I've been asked is about this type, and this is what we're going to do, which is also what I normally use as well. So we're going to see how to fit this kind of pegs into the head of the guitar. So let's talk about the pegs for a moment. You can nowadays find suppliers for guitars that they will sell you the right type of flamenco peg already. But if you don't find the design that you like that's what's happened with me when I was ordering these ones, I wanted to find something like this, which is a little bit more fancy and not too bulky in the clavija here, in this section. And I just wanted something that is nice. This is what I like. If you don't like it, then that's fine. You just find that the design that you like. But because I couldn't find this design as a set for flamenco, what I did is that I went and I bought this this is sold for a viola. So in the violin industry, this is the system that they use as well. It's fitted in a slightly different way, but this is the kind of peg that they use. So the violin peg, it's a little bit small. The viola peg, it's perfect. Obviously the cello peg is just huge. It's not gonna work for this. But the viola is just the right dimension for you to do the job. And as it happens, because you can buy them only in sets of 4, you need to buy 2 sets, so you're gonna get 8 pegs. So what that means is that you got 2 extra pegs to faff around with, because you are gonna have to be messing around a little bit until you get everything set up, and then you might find that you ruin one of your pegs. So it's not a bad idea to have a couple of spares to make sure that you got everything sorted, and then when you're ready, you got all 6 pegs that you're gonna need. So this is the peg. Now you're gonna need a reamer. So this is a very standard tool. Again, you buy this on in websites or shops where they supply for instrument makers. The taper here is 1:30, and it's pretty much the standard used for this kind of instruments, for violins, for guitars, and so on. So you buy yourself one of these ones, and then you also need to buy yourself a peg shaper. This device I bought years ago, and for the life of me that I can't get on with it. It's just, the idea is really good because you got this adjustment, so it means that you can change the dimension, and you can, let me put this in here. I'm not gonna do it properly, but I just want to show you. You can get this into here, you get the peg in place, and let me see if I can get it. I'm already struggling with it. So basically it works like a pencil sharpener. You got your blade here, and as you turn it, you have to twist it a little bit until you get the right dimension for the peg and the right shape. And you got this adjusting bolt so that you can change the angle of attack into the blade, so that then you can adjust the taper. But like I say, I've never gone on well with this. I've used it many times, but it's always a nightmare, and I don't like it. So what you would say, well, what do I do then? Well, for me, I just think it's easier to make your own taper or peg shaper. So this is a very, very simple block, and I'm gonna just explain how I've done it, because this is very easy to do. You can do this on your workshop really, really easily. So for the blade, what I'm gonna use is this big chisel. This chisel is 50 millimeters wide. So this is the chisel I like because it's also gonna cover the whole length of the peg. You see, the peg is just a little bit shorter, so you need a chisel that it's wide enough to cover the whole length of the peg. So once you have your chisel, you want to make sure that it's like sharp like nothing else. If it's not super sharp, this is not going to work, because the thing is that your pegs are very tough, and they need to be able to do the job. And if the blade is not as sharp as amazing, it's not going to work. So take your time to make sure that this is super sharp, and I've spent a bit of time sharpening, and I've got an edge here that I'm very happy with. So this is ready to go. So to make this block, what I've done is that I've got a block of cedar, and any guitar maker or anybody who makes guitars, even as a hobby, hopefully you'll have lots of offcuts of this. You can do it with any timber, it doesn't have to be cedar. I just do it with that because I like it, and I got lots of it. So what I've done is I got this block, which is 24 millimeters thick. It can be a little bit thinner, it wouldn't matter. And then it is 65 millimeters in width. And the idea is that then I can glue on with a bit of super glue this stopper, because this is going to help me to locate the chisel in the right place. So the position of this stopper I'm going to explain in a moment. Then what I've done is that I've got another block attached here to the end of it, and it's the same thickness, it's from the same stock, and I just glue it into that. This length, so that you got the dimension, it's about 34 millimeters. So this block was just a little bit bigger, and what I did was to drill through and through with a drill bit, and the drill bit needs to be just a little bit smaller than the smaller part of the peg. So all you're going to do is measure your peg, and here you have 8 millimeters. So what I did here is to use a, I think it was a 6 millimeter drill bit, and this is about 7.4 now, but 6 millimeters is enough because the reamer at this point it's way smaller, it's about 5. So all you want is to have just one hole that will allow you to get your reamer in, and then all you need to do is to open the hole with the reamer a little bit at a time. You know, don't force it, but you're gonna need to get the reamer from time to time to allow to all this dust that it gets compacted into here to come out. And basically you're just gonna do it through and through, and you need to keep going until you can see that. Let me see if I can get a peg that is not worked on. So this one is ready, so I'm gonna use this one is as it was when I bought it. And what you want to do is to know that you can more or less get it in. You don't want it in all the way. So you can see if I push it in, I got about 3 millimeters or 4 millimeters left to this shoulder. So that's all I want. If it's too big, then this is not gonna work. So then once I have the hole, then I cut off this section here so that I have a little bit less than a quarter of the hole on show, because then I've got this window in here. And once I have this window, this edge that I have is the one that I'm going to use to find out where to position this stopper. So what I've done is to make sure that this edge and this edge are completely square to each other. Okay, you can do that very easily with a square, lay it out and fit in your stopper. So now we need to, before we start shaping the pegs, we need to have the holes sorted out. So with the same 6 millimeter hole that I use, or 6 millimeter drill bit that I used to do this one, I go to my pillar drill and I drill 6 millimeters holes in the position of each one of those. You can see this one is way bigger because I've already worked on this one to get this peg to fit in here, and you can see how well it fits. So that's why this hole is a little bit bigger than the other ones, but it works fine. So once you have done all the holes in the pillar drill and they are completely perpendicular and in the right position, now we're going to see how to enlarge this hole so that this peg will fit. So what we're going to do is that we're going to make the hole with the reamer. Once we got all of them, all you need to do is to get the reamer into here and start reaming away, obviously from this side because you want the taper to go in this way. So the bigger part of the hole is here and the smaller one is in the front, because this is the way the taper is. Okay, it's a little bit obvious, but you won't believe how easy it is to go and do it this way, and then you messed it up. So you're gonna go and do it this way. Now, what happens is that as we cut here, it's very, very easy to cut unevenly, and you can start cutting off the square with this tool, because this tool, you can see, it can move, because this is a taper, while here is cylindrical. So you want to make sure that you're not gonna be doing the hole with the reamer off the square, because if you do, then what will happen is that if it's a little bit off the square, it's not the end of the world. But if it's way off the square, what will happen is that when you're looking at your guitar, you'll have pegs going disaligning from each other, and it doesn't look very good. So what I do to avoid that is to get the reamer off the handle. I've put a piece of tape here because the passing pin now is a little bit loose in this one, because I've done this so many times, so I don't want to lose the pin. But basically, when you buy your reamer, you'll see that there is a pin in the handle, which is the one that holds the shaft of the reamer itself. So all we need to do is to get this out of here. I take the pin, I get the handle out, and now I'm going to bring this to the pillar drill, and I'm going to do some, or at least the beginning of the rimmed hole with the pillar drill. That way I know that the initial cutting, which is the key point where it needs to be completely square, it will be square because it's done in the pillar drill. So that's what we're going to do. Let's go over to this side. So in my pillar drill, I'm going to get the stop out of the way, and I'm going to bring the reamer in like that. Now we're going to tighten it into the chuck like this, and yeah, that goes in very well. Now what will happen is that we need to drill from this side, and because the reamer is quite thin at this end, and the position that we need to be using to fit with the peg, it's about here, you will see how actually we can do only a little bit of it, but really this is not cut until we get the reamer down to this position. So what we're going to do is to do a little bit first. So I'm going to do that now, and I'm going to be very careful that everything is well lined up, because I don't want to be cutting where it shouldn't be. So I'm just going to do a little bit of cutting, and now I got to my stop. Okay, so I bring this out and I stop it, and you can see this is where I've got to with the reamer, but I need to go way deeper. I need to be able to get up to about here. So what we're going to do is that we're going to get a couple of blocks like this one, and first I'm going to set up the stop. So I'm going to bring this one to the one that I did already, and then I'm going to put this other block here. They are the same thickness, and now I'm going to bring the reamer down, not all the way, but more or less there. So I can see that my stop for the drill wants to be here. Okay, so now I get all of this out of the way, and what I'm going to do is to lock the stopper like that. That should do it. And now I'm going to drill the one that I already started. So I'm going to bring this into here and this into there, and then I'm going to bring this down so that the head is in the right place in relation to the reamer, and I'm going to switch it on, and now I know that I can go all the way down, and that is my new hole. So this is a little bit of a job to do in a few steps. Let's go back to the other bench. So we are now going to see how to work with this hole and how to work with a new peg. Now this is the peg that I've already prepared so that you can see how it works. So which one was it? It was this one. So this is for the string number 3. So to make sure that I'm not going to confuse them, because each one of them will fit just in the right hole, what I'm going to do is to write down here, well, I know this is number 3, but in this peg I'm going to get a little bit of tape like this, and I'm going to write down number 3. Okay, I'm going to actually do it with a pen so that it's easier to see, because I know that this is the peg that will fit on that hole and I don't want to get it all mixed up with any of the other ones. So we're gonna use this peg, which is brand new, and now we need to get the peg to fit into this hole here. So you can see that it doesn't go in all the way, and that's what I want, because I'm going to be removing some material from here. So as I made this smaller, this is going to go up and it's going to go forward. I'm going to see how it fits in there, and you can see that it only sticks out a little bit. The other one was sticking out about 9mm, which is what I need. So I'm going to have to enlarge this one a little bit, maybe, but I want to do this first because maybe this peg will end up being a little bit thinner than the other one. And again, it doesn't matter too much as long as they all stick out the same amount. So now we're going to set up my peg shaper, my my own shaper that I made myself. So what I want to do is I'm going to go for a moment. I'm just going to get a clamp. Right, so what I'm going to do is to set up the chisel into, and let me see how I can do it so that you can see it well. So first I'm going to see, and I'm going to check that my blade is parallel to that edge, and I can see that it's pretty good. So what I'm going to do is to get the blade to go out into the hole just a little bit. So I'm going to have it like that, and then what I'm going to do is to use a clamp to hold it in position. So actually I'm going to put the clamp in the vise so that it's a little bit easier, because I only got 2 hands and the vise is going to be my 3rd hand. So I'm going to need this one here going in this way, like so. It's not even a millimeter, it's just a tiny bit, it's a tiny amount, like that. Then I'm going to do it this way better. Okay, so now you want this nice and tight, because you don't want this chisel to separate. So this is what it looks like. Okay, so now I can put my device in here, but to be able to put it there I'm going to need this, because it needs to be away from the bench. No, I'm going to do it in here like this, much better. Okay, so that's not touching. I can put it in there, and you want this nice and tight. Right, so now what we're going to do is, with the peg, we're going to start. Okay, so we're going to start feeding this very, very gently. We don't want it to get jammed, and sometimes it does, but you want to start a little bit at a time so that you can start shaving a little bit. So this way it's a little bit harder, but if we do it gently, it will cut a little bit more. So here you can see where it's already, I don't know if you can see the chine. The peg has a little bit of a chine, but where it's been shaped, it's already been removed a bit of material, not a lot, but it shows completely matte. So you can see that we are already in the right direction. But before I go too far, what I'm going to do, I'm going to bring it into my hole, which is this one, because I want to see how this moves. So as I bring it into here, I can see that I can feel that there's a tiny bit of movement here. So what it means is that this is cutting in the right way, because what it means is that this is too thick and this is a bit thinner. So we're actually changing the taper in the right way. So we're going in the right direction. So we're just going to keep going. And here's where you need to be really patient. You need to take your time. I think this is going to work better in this direction. And basically you don't want to push in too much too quickly, because then the whole thing is going to jump like now. This is jumped into it. So I'm not going to force it, because if I force it I can break something. So all I'm going to do is to get a little dowel, and I'm going to get the dowel into this end, and then with the hammer I'm just going to tap it a little bit. That's it. Now it's out and it's fine, nothing's broken. And what that's telling me is that I mustn't be too impatient, I mustn't push it in too much. I just need to give it a bit more time. Okay. Right, so now the area that is cutting is from the top to here. So let's have a look and see how it's gonna fit now. Okay, so now I can see that it's touching in here, but there's still a little bit of movement. But now I can see that the movement is because it's free in this side. So actually I have too much angle in here. So what we're going to do is that I'm going to get the hammer and I'm going to tap my chisel, and this is where it's quite handy to have this top, because now if I tap it here, let me think, yeah, so if I tap it here it will separate very slightly like that, and then I've changed the angle again. So I'm just gonna start doing this again, and then once you got the chisel set up to do the right angle, you should be able to do all the holes, all the pegs with that setting. So in the beginning, this is why you need more than one peg, because there's a chance that I might spoil this one. I don't think I will, but it is possible. So now the taper is changed. I'm going to bring it back here again. And now we're back to that scenario where it's catching in this side and then that side. So this is how little you need to move things. So I'm just gonna tap it back in again because I did too much, and let's do this again. I think this needs to come out a little bit as well. Like that. Okay, so a little bit more again. Like that. Okay, I think that should do it. Let me think. This is yeah, it's still moving a little bit, so I'm gonna cut a little bit more. Let me think. It's moving, so it's too tight here. It's moving at the back, so we need to get it this way. Okay. You can see you need to give this a little bit of patience, but once you got this set up, you'll see that this will go like plain sailing. Yeah, still move a little bit. Let me see the other one, because this one I was able to fit it really well. There's no movement whatsoever on this one. So if I've done it before, I should be able to do it again. So yeah, it moves a little bit, but I need to get a little bit more from there. Right. Okay, here we are. Right. And you can see it sticks out more or less the same as in the other one. Right, so I'm happy with the fit here. So now we got the right setup here for the peg shaper, so we're not going to touch the position of that chisel, and now we know that this is cutting the right taper here. So what we need to do is to enlarge the hole in the head until this peg, you can see this peg at the moment is just barely coming out, maybe about 1 millimeter, but we want it to come out more or less like this one, about 9 millimeters. So what we're going to do is to rescue that peg shaper from, not the reamer, I mean from here. And we're gonna get this dust out of here, and then put the pin and the handle, or the handle and the pin and everything together again, like that. Then the way to keep that pin from coming out on its own is just to get a little bit of tape here, and that way the pin is not going to come out. Right, so now all we need to do is to enlarge this hole just enough to get the peg to stick out the same amount as the other one. The other one I did, I think it was 9 millimeters, but I'm gonna check. I'm gonna check again. So this one is yeah, 9.1, something like that. So we want this one to stick out 9.1 as well. So because we've done the main cutting of the hole with the pillar drill, we know that the hole is perpendicular to the face. So now I only have to do a little bit, and I don't need to worry so much about going off the center with this one. So I'm just gonna cut a little bit at a time, not too much. And now you can see my peg is sticking out a bit more, but it's not enough. So I'm just gonna do a little bit more. Not enough, but I want to see how much I've got. So at the moment I have 7.8, so we're getting there. So to be able to see how much is sticking out properly, I need to push it in a little bit without jamming it, but to the position where it holds really well, and then that's where I can work out. And this is good now. It's a little bit deeper than the other one, but at the moment this is okay. And later on, when I have them all, then I fine-tune all the tops to get them down to the right level, because this one is sticking out a little bit more. This one was sticking out like 9.2 and this is like 9.5, but near enough. Right, so now we have two pegs fitting really well into our head. So all we need to do is to do the same with the other four. Right, so before we finish this video, I'm going to explain just a couple of things more. The peg, it's a friction peg, but we need to have a little bit of lubrication in this system. So when I talk about lubrication, please don't use any oil, because oil and wood, they just don't like each other. So I'm not talking about conventional lubrication of oil. The kind of lubricant that we're going to use for this is actually pencil lead, and the pencil lead, it's great for doing this. So all I'm going to do is to put a little mark in this side and a little mark in here in the peg to see the section of the peg that it's in contact with the head. And then all I'm going to do, so I got this one here and this one here. So all I'm going to do is to wrap pencil lead in this area here. I don't need it up here, and I don't want to have to be cleaning it later, and I don't need it in the other side either. So I'm just going to have it like this. And put as much as you can, cover the whole thing. And now I'm going to bring the peg in place, and I'm going to start rubbing it so that I get the pencil lead into the head as well. And you can see this already is much more friendly and is nice and smooth. And also it gives you an indication of if you have good friction, because I can see that the pencil lead is kind of not gone from one place more than another one. It's really very even, so that tells me that there is good contact between the peg and the head. So I'm going to try to put in some in here as well. And the reason why we use this kind of lubricant, because it's dry. So what it means is that it's not going to interfere with the wood soaking in any liquid and giving us problems. So I'm just gonna go and have another go and put a little bit more in here. And now I'm going to bring it back into the head. And I don't want to really force it, but you can go in a bit and you can see that there's good friction, but it's easy to turn. And basically that's all there is to it. You can see it's a bit time consuming. This is how long it's taking us to do just one, but once you got the peg shaper set up and you got the drill and everything kind of ready to go, it's actually not that time consuming. Right, so we got the peg fitting really nicely. There's one more job to do here, and it's that you need to make a 1.5 millimeter hole at the end of the peg. So what I've got here is from other pegs that I've done in the past. I've got this little jig that I've made, and basically, let's bring the peg in place here. You want to have your hole more or less in the middle of the section that comes out of here. So if this is coming out 9 millimeters, really what this means is that this needs to be about 4.5 or no more than 5 millimeters down from the top. Now I'm not going to make the hole yet because I haven't fitted all the pegs, and really that is the last job to do, because if for any reason one goes in a little bit more, I'm going to have to adjust all the other ones a little bit, and then I will also have to remove a little bit of the peg from this side, which is very easy to do. You just get the peg into here, you get them all, and then you get yourself a sanding block and you work on all of them at the same time so that they're all the same height. But what that means is that I'm not really ready to make this hole here. But it's very easy, it's very simple, and all you need to do is to make yourself a little jig like this. This is no more than a block. This block is just a little bit bigger than the peg. I can tell you how thick it is so that you can see. That's nearly 16 millimeters in width. Then you drill a little bit of the hole to then go in with the reamer, so that then you can get the peg in, and the peg will go in. Hang on, I got this one here. Okay, I'm gonna have to make this one bigger because this is from another one that I did, and you can see these pegs they were a lot smaller, so they fit in here. But it doesn't matter, you just made yourself one where with the reamer you make it fit so that this will go in 9 millimeters, and you got your 1.5 millimeter here. So all you need to do is to jam the peg in place and then drill through and through. Now the one thing that I would say is that it's not always very easy to see where the grain is going in these pegs. So what I would do is, first, don't worry too much about it, because when we put in the string, we're going to be wrapping it around, and just the fact that we're wrapping around the string on the peg is going to hold the peg together and it shouldn't break. Also, it's been held really tight by the rest of the shaft. So if you drill with the grain, which is not how I would recommend, then it won't be the end of the world. But if you're able to see the grain well, and it's not always possible, to be honest, then basically what I'm trying to say is that you want to try to get this hole perpendicular to the grain. That is the safest way to do it. And then when you wrap the string around, it will hold everything together. But if it's a little bit off the perpendicular or even parallel, again, it will work as well. I'm just telling you what's the ideal, just in case you can achieve that. Right, well, I think that's all there is to it. I got these two pegs fitted. At the right time, when I got them all, I will make all the holes. But you can see how this is really not that complicated. You just need to give it time. Make sure that you got a good setup, because the shape of the peg, it's very important. And if the peg doesn't fit properly, then it's no point, because you're going to have a guitar that you cannot really handle very well with the tuning, and that's not going to work. And this is already a bit of a faff to tune up, so because it's a little bit more complicated than normal, you want this to fit like perfect. You don't want to have compromises here. So when you have all your pegs put in place and everything, you check all the heights, drill all your holes, and then this is ready to go. So this is where we're going to leave it. I know there's a lot more work here, but I hope that with the information that I've given you, you can do this on your own. If something is not clear or you need a bit more information, just send me a text or just contact me, leave me a comment in the description of the video, and then I'll try to respond to whatever questions you have. So I hope you find it helpful, and until the next time.